our 20-minute maybe conversation around leadership nuggets today. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday morning cup of coffee with Mary May, leadership strategist, where I say before you make any decision, make sure you have a cup of coffee or tea, depending on what your vice. And let's talk about some leadership nuggets utilizing a method that I have identified as the GPS to navigate what your success and what your goals actually are in regards to leveling up in your career successfully. So, the GPS for me, we're accustomed to GPS being a roadmap and helping us get to different places that we are, which creates a transformation. So, when you are engaged with the GPS, you are identifying what your goals are and activating them from a space of clarity, and you are putting a plan and positioning yourself that you can activate those goals with realistic outcomes such that you can develop the plan and the strategy that's going to help you level up in the way that you find necessary. So, good morning with your morning smoothie. Yes, smoothies work too. So, whatever your vice is in the morning, smoothies definitely work as well. So, this Tuesday morning, just in case there's anybody new coming to this space, I am a leadership strategist and I help people identify how they can create that transition, create that leveling up experience that they want to grow from being passed over and overlooked, using their lane of genius and their skill set to being well paid and promoted. And sometimes you may identify that you're already well paid, but you're not really doing well either in being promoted or sustaining the roles that you have as a leader in your space. So I don't want us to get stuck on that it's only the goal for getting well paid and promoted, but that is one goal that is very optimal for a lot of people that I come across. But there are individuals who are leaders and need to kind of pull the curtain back and figure out what it is, what strategies is going to help them level up in the most effective and efficient way. And why not utilize a proven method that has been utilized not only for myself, but for others that I have worked with, such that they are able to pull that curtain back and level up with unapologetically in their lane of genius. So, without further ado, our focus conversation for today is, what is your cover story? What is your cover story? Now, I know you're probably like, okay, what is Mary May about to talk to us about today with what our cover story is and what does she mean by that? And in all conversations, usually there is really just a small nugget of you identifying what is a 2 millimeter change that you could do on your daily activities, your productivity, how you receive new information, and how it is that you choose to level up. So in leadership, when we break that glass ceiling and we level up, it's like we identify what are our barriers, what are the roadblocks, what are the detours that continually come into our space that put us on pause. And so, before I go any further, I want to let you know that if you are new to this space, I do welcome engagement questions. If you are here live, thank you for the live engagement. If you catch me on a replay, I will definitely come back and share some engagement and love and feedback to your question or comment as well. And feel free to share this information with anyone that you find could benefit from this information. So, what is your cover story? I always love this part of a conversation when helping individuals make that transformation or being onboarded into an organization, and they've called me in to help people identify not only language and how they present themselves, but also understanding their cover story. And so when you understand the cover story that you have, it really becomes a game changer in regards to how you understand you leveling up. So, a cover story, we've heard of cover letters. Some of us may have heard of compatibility statements, which is like a one-page document that you are really captivating who you are, who you serve, what skills have you done, and maybe possibly who some collaborative partners have been. But then who is introducing you to those leveling up conversations when you're not in that room? So how you present yourself comes through your language, the words that you use, the conversations that you manifest, the engagement of transformation, and how you help an individual, team, or a project move from the point A, current reality, to like the desired outcomes that they're looking for. What's your productivity, your time management? That would be a cover story, because that would be something that individuals who have the capacity to level you up have the wherewithal to say, okay, well, what's their productivity? How do they engage with others, which is teamwork? How do they look at their ability to, be successful? And are they presenting themselves in the right way? So again, leadership is not necessarily always in your title. However, you are a leader of understanding what your cover story, how you present yourself, is actually appearing, and what it actually is communicating. Is your energy, is your tone, are you approachable? Are all of these things working for you in a capacity where you are able to reframe and understand how you are showing up? Because if your cover story is not really appealing, or not really approachable, or is not really checking the boxes of you having the appropriate language in the space, your ability to be productive and engage with a team, then the question of you leveling up to a different part of the organization or the project becomes very gray area, because we're not sure, as the leader, as the person who oversees the project, are you going to be successful? So when you look at your language, how are you speaking? How are you presenting yourself? How are you welcoming to others? Do you greet people when you come into the room, or do you wait for things to be handed to you? All of those things matter. And depending on if you need to, have a reset for how it is that you function, then you would benefit from being able to reset the room and reset the obvious of intentions, and making sure that you are doing well. Good morning. Thanks for joining the conversation, and thanks for the love in the heart as well. Um, so you have to reset and take a moment to kind of reset and rethink. Was your commute challenging? If your commute coming in was challenging, then you might need to take a reset moment in your car, in your office, on your walk from the train station into the office, to kind of reset, so that whatever negative interaction, whatever may pull your energetic down, that it doesn't impact your cover story. So then when you enter into the workspace, whatever has transpired, in a sense, you're able to pull that curtain back and kind of confront whatever you need to confront, but being able to be successful. But in going back into the office and how it is, your reset also comes with understanding your language and executive language, which comes with code switching, comes with the ability to know how you read the room and how your content remains in the professional context or the professional space that is appropriate for the individuals for whom you serve. Now, what do I mean by that? The language that you use has to match and be in alignment with cultural sensitivity, to the context of the work that you're doing, to not offending anyone, but then also being open to constructive criticism. And the constructive criticism may guide you into growing and understanding the executive language portion that you will evolve into as you level up, because your ability to read the room will be able to help you guide and create a GPS, if you will, a reframing, if you will, on how it is that you will present yourself in those different spaces. Now, another part of language can be body language. So the body language is a part of your cover story, because are you open? Are you receptive? Are you taking in the information that people are giving to you and not internalizing it so that it can be all negative, but are you internalizing it so that you can lead forward? So being able to recognize the language from your body, from your actions, from your reactivity. Are you reactive and impulsive? If you are, sometimes that's not a great look in the leadership space, because of the fact that if you are reactive and impulsive, did you fully think it through? Did you look at all of the possible outcomes that could come in this situation? And did you read the room appropriately to knowing not your only your body language, but what you're saying? Something else in the observation of how it is that you show up and in how it is that you read that room. Is your attire in a leveling up specialized way, like in a leveling up capacity, that when you have the compatibility statement that says that you're qualified for all of these things, but is your brand, is how you show up in the room, is it matching the content that's coming out of your mouth? And it may match for you around the way with your friends, but your intentionality when you're in the professional space, you have to be mindful. Are you dressed appropriately for what it is that you are intending to do? And so one of the comments is saying, different cultures have different expectations of what body language actually is. And you're absolutely 1,000,000% correct. Because eye contact from a generational standpoint can be extremely important. And there are some cultures that eye contact is very disrespectful. The other culture of body language could be gender differences or similarities. If there's something in my cultural values and beliefs that indicate that I am not supposed to speak up or speak back or engage because of a power dynamic that exists, that exists, but it doesn't necessarily exist to the capacity that somebody may think of. That power dynamic of gender is very, very important to be mindful of, because what your experiences are and what your cultural background actually indicates plays a large part. And looking at how it is that you brand yourself and your attire and your consistency. So your attire and how you come into the room is definitely important when you're looking at how is it that you can level up and level up accordingly to the space that you desire to be. And so in doing that, you got to be mindful that you may have experienced some challenges in your growth journey, in your GPS, that has kind of snatched your energy or snatched your soul or snatched your integrity, and you're questioning your ability to kind of position yourself and understand who you are in certain spaces. But that should only be an aspect of, is this a right fit for you, as a puzzle piece is to the puzzle? Or do you need to understand how it is that you need to level up in all things? So, from mindset, from productivity, from you being consistent, to your language, to being able to code switch, those things are extremely important when you are positioning yourself. And sometimes we stay connected to what has been our value in all levels of our level up, or all levels of our ability to grow, and what it is that we stay wedded to sometimes is a part of the cover story that is not being read well. And whereas we think that it should be read well, it is actually reading us outside of that room, or outside of having that permission to sit at that executive level, at that next level of leadership that you have, because of your inconsistency on how it is that you show up. So it's like, if you had a bad experience, the process that you take yourself through and taking what the positives were of that bad experience, as well as what were the undesirable situations. The undesirable situations, but let's reframe that for a second. The undesirable situations are not necessarily 100% undesirable. The thing is that when we walk into the room and we have a conversation with someone who gives us feedback that maybe we don't agree with or we don't like, we have to take a moment to kind of unlock our silence and reframe that daily divorce of self, because there's somewhere in your life that somebody has always given you criticism, and then you allowed that, you took that into your bag, and you said it must be fact, and you kept on going. What I want to encourage you to do now in your transformation is identify from the criticism that you have and see what about that criticism is a theme for you. What about that criticism has been a breaking point or a consistent something that has come up, that if you recognize what that game changer pivot is, that you will also be able to successfully recognize how you can show up for yourself, but show up in learning moving forward. And sometimes from a supervisor dynamic or a peopling dynamic, we're given feedback that we're not liking, but we're actually taking it on and internalizing it. And then therefore it becomes a part of our cover story. So if we once came to work nice and happy, nice and jovial, ready for productivity, and then all of a sudden we had our performance review and something happens where all of that kind of shifts and change, then you end up having you giving yourself, where you putting that into your curtain and you covering yourself up and kind of hiding behind the silence. You've allowed that situation to kind of snatch your credibility and snatch your capability, that you are already successful in the integrity that you have developed, but you have to unlearn from those bad experiences. So those bad experiences, whether you've changed addresses, you have gotten onto a new team with a new manager, you have to let those things go. If you don't, then you end up keeping yourselves in handcuffs and at the same level wondering why you are being overlooked and not considered for that next level positioning that has come up. So the the things is that perception becomes one's reality, and the reality becomes someone's perception. So when you think about that and you think about how it is that you present yourself, what about your cover story do you need to consider, either having constructive criticism or critical dialogue with those around you, so possibly that you can be open to growing. But then what other support do you need on a side by side to kind of unlearn the patterns that need to be interrupted for you, so that it doesn't block your ability to move forward? Because if we talk about, I see the word professional toolbox. If we talk about a professional toolbox, the professional toolbox is always evolving, but it evolves on how you reset the table. It evolves on how you allow your daily divorce of self, those negative thoughts that come in to tell you that that criticism is in my new bag and it must be true, because in this situation where I didn't get a promotion or I didn't get acknowledged or wasn't able to get well paid or level up there, and I moved to this new address having the same experiences, the projection of the reality you project out to other individuals, rather than having that personal process time to be limited, and you create your own limiting belief around your capacity and your capability in moving forward. So your limiting ability or your limiting beliefs that you have about yourself are self-created, and it becomes that your choice to transform seems so impossible. And it's impossible as long as you don't allow yourself to kind of elevate and say, let me take a step back. Let me see what resources it is that I need, and how can I confront this, and what help do I actually need? So in the essence of being creating that strategy within the GPS format, if you were to decide to work with me, that you would get that blueprint that kind of helps you see what you haven't seen. It helps you pull back that curtain to see what has been snatched from you from previous experiences that are blocking your ability to see how it is that you can successfully implement the strategy so that you can execute with the discipline that you need, and utilizing that discipline of keeping yourself stuck with those limiting beliefs and that criticism that has you've allowed to handcuff you and keep you limited, and making a choice to say it must be me. And in essence, it is you if you're choosing to stay stuck. And so the thing that I encourage you to do is to process the feedback, to have a conversation, but looking at your cover story from the time that you decide what part of the corporate costume are you going to wear. So what, is it going to be a blazer? Is it going to be a suit? Is it going to be, who are you meeting with? But then also in your language, is your language going to reflect the language that's acceptable from a code switching? You're not on a corner with your girls or the guys, like just shooting game and having fun, but you realize that you are now in a professional setting and a professional conversation. Even if the setting becomes comfortable, it doesn't get that comfortable, because realize that if you get that comfortable, then your execution and your discipline to the task becomes watered down. Your execution and your discipline to your integrity gets watered down. And you don't want to water down all of the things that you are capable of by a simple 2 millimeter change that you can code switch to kind of position yourself effectively. So it's like when you look at your cover story, are you coachable? Are you always ready to, be in the best position that you can level up? Are you being mindful of the language that you're using, body language, verbal, nonverbal, your intentions of the outcome of the space? What are you being mindful of when you think about your cover story? Because think about, your cover story is your brand. And with it being your brand, you're like, okay, but I'm not a business. I don't, only businesses need brands. Well, we're going to demystify that today. Kick that thought out the window. You are a brand of you, and you are a brand that adds into the flavor of the brand of whatever organization that you go into. And yes, you end up taking on their mission statement and their intentionality because you have signed an agreement to do a certain task. However, you are still a brand within yourself, within that team. And your part of being a brand is to show up consistency, and with the appropriate language that conveys. So your resume is always being boosted. Your skill set is always showing your compatibility. You are creating, making the evidence that you have on this compatibility statement to be the reality to what it is that you can implement and execute for the success of the goals of the conversation. And so if you are working, I see the comment, if you are working with managers that are stuck in their thinking and can't move away from seeing someone else in the same light, then that could be a conversation that we can have on another Tuesday morning nuggets, because there's a difference between a boss and there's a difference between someone who's a leader. Leaders are always looking to reach the hand out and have the hand across the aisle to say, okay, what are your goals? Having that next level conversation with those people who are working with them to say, how can we work side by side and bringing you up? Someone coming up and doing the same skill that you have is only a benefit. It gives you the opportunity that you can step back and not have your plate so overflowing because you're the only one that knows how to do something. If someone else on your team is willing to grow and move forward, it's a benefit. However, a boss mindset would see that as a threat, and they would see that as, okay, well, let me steal people's ideas and then present them as my own, and not give the individual or the team that created this the credit. As the boss, I'm going to take all of that credit. So the thought process for how it is that you level up should always be from a collaborative, not a competition standpoint, because in the sense that you level up, you never know what your journey is going to take you. And you definitely want to have the integrity that you're ready to move on, and that you don't have to have the burden of what you did not share with the other individuals around you. So that takes that execution, and it takes that discipline to really understand that your role as a leader, yes, you're a high achiever, yes, you're a big thinker, but you don't have to manage it all on your own. And so when you think about it from that perspective, you have to think about it from the ways in which you stay in a positioning of being ready to grow. So I have been chatting for a while. If there's any questions, I'm going to take a sip of coffee to give the internet time to get your questions out there, your thoughts out there. If there's any questions, if you could drop them in, and I can go ahead and answer them at this time. Um, Someone said to avoid individual stigmatization by practicing self-reflection around behavior, because behavior is communication. So yeah, let me get my coffee. Behavior is definitely communication. And I believe we talked about behavior last week when we talked about the secret sauce to your discipline. Behavior is communication in a sense that behavior is used for either to getting something or to avoid something. And you need to understand what is it that the person wants as the outcome, but then also how is it that they go about doing it. Do they realize their strengths or their challenges when their behavior is communicating something opposite? So remember when we mentioned earlier about your cover story. In your cover story, is your behavior appealing? Is it approachable? Is it, open to the growth of your team? And are you from a limited mindset or from a growth mindset? Because if you believe that there is a ceiling that you have to break, that would be in a sense of a limited mindset, because there's no boxes, there's no limits. You create those limits by believing that you have to understand or function in a certain way. And you have to assimilate, but you have to assimilate at an executive mindset level, and recognizing that your opportunity awaits you when you execute and when you show true discipline. Um, how do you handle yourself when you may not be familiar with the content of the work? And how do you professionally express your feelings without feeling embarrassed? So, that's like three different things there. If you find or feel that the content that you're being presented with, then the suggestion would be you should do some research or ask those intellectual questions. Share what you do understand, because that's a part of your cover story, and showing your confidence. What a part of the content that's being presented to you that you do understand, and then let them know you need some additional support before either you could say yes to this project, you need to do some research, or can they assist you side by side to kind of give you the pathway to what it is that you're going to do. If you are feeling embarrassed by this journey or this process, then that comes again from somewhere else, in a situation where you would benefit from unlearning, because someone has told you that you're not capable, or that you don't have the skill set to do XYZ job. So the first time that you are presented with unfamiliar territory, and you're presented with the unfamiliar territory from a leader who believes that you have the capacity, or that believes in stretching your bandwidth and building your 2 millimeter scope so that you can grow and level up, So if you go into that process where you would benefit from that daily divorce of self, then you would need to kind of have a conversation about what about this new content makes me feel uncomfortable. Now, this is a personal dialogue. What about this is making me feel uncomfortable and why? What resources do I have in front of me that I can rebuild my confidence in knowing that if it was presented to me, then it must be for the intentionality of building me up, not to make me embarrassed, not to make me fail, not to make me feel limited or less than. You are more than capable if it's presented to you. You just might have to take a little bit of extra time to do that personal, honest inventory of yourself to be able to eliminate your mind and your body going into that fear or flight response that instantaneously takes you back to feeling I'm less than, or I'm not capable, or I'm embarrassed if I have to ask questions. We have to ask questions for new territory that we don't know, but we also have to take the responsibility and the diligence in our discipline to say, okay, what's the next thing that I can do to take ownership and be able to move forward? And absolutely getting out of your own way, pulling that curtain back, that daily divorce of self, of seeds that have been planted within your life throughout various experiences that have not served you well, yet you're giving them the rent space rent free to kind of sabotage your ability to level up. So a part of the work that, if in fact you did decide to, grab some time on my calendar and for us to work together, we would kind of find out what is that thing and what is those things that you constantly allow to be the roadblocks that get you in your own way, thinking, productivity, activity, all of those things are your functions of your behavior, so that you can begin to identify, not get stuck in the weeds of the journey, but get clear on how it is that you need to make that 2 millimeter shift so that you can level up unapologetically and be in your space successfully. So on Instagram, one of the responses is they like a response that I gave, and the professional shouldn't feel pressured to say yes if they don't fully understand the project. Absolutely. If you don't understand the project, you have to ask additional questions. But the thing is that if you get caught up in your feelings, in your Jasmine Sullivan feelings, then you have to also take that honest inventory as the professional to separate those feelings of insecurity, of fear, of anything like that, and being capable or being responsible to say, okay, this is what I understand. I want to confirm that what I understand is accurate. I need a little bit more information on X, Y, and Z. Your confidence shows through in your cover story when you organize and you come with succinct and direct questions so that you can be effective all along the way. And so, asking those clarifying questions, being very, very specific, being very clear in what your intentionality does not make you less than. The glass ceiling and those boxes only exist when you give them that influential power and when you give them those intentionalities to kind of live on a consistent basis. So if you want to live in a box and you want to live where the ceiling is glass and that you can only see through the glass but you can't get to the other side, then you might be comfortable where you are. However, if you are that individual that wants to live unapologetically and be successful in your space without the idea of the glass ceiling having any challenges for you on a day-to-day basis, then you have to be able to envision the language, the body language, your cover story, how it is that you show up in your workspace, because it will mirror how you show up in other spaces as well. But remembering, when you're in a professional standpoint, even when it becomes comfortable, you have to remain in that language and in that standpoint that you have an intention in this space, and that if you're trying to level up the things that are important for you in leveling up, you have to be mindful of how it is that you show up with your cover story. So have an example you can share with me on how to envision X content so that I could make sure that we're on the same page for our definitions. As Miss Mary said, language is important. So we could be using two different languages for the same thing. Absolutely. So one of the things that is a workaround, again, is being clear and saying what you understand, but being clear and saying what you need additional assistance with. Don't just say, I don't understand this. Don't say it like that. Can you help me understand? And then begin to say whatever it is about that content that you don't understand, because you want to be able to implement with success in the content that you are looking to deliver. So that cover story comes with that honest inventory and integrity to be consistent and disciplined on how it is that you execute. So when you think about things like that, you have to think about maintaining your confidence and maintaining your cover story, that you're always in a position of learning, and you're always in a position of unlearning those things that don't serve you well. And so, are there any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? We dive in deep today. We're going a little bit longer. We dive in deep. Um, yes, be transparent, but be more transparent with yourself than necessarily the managers. Because when I hear the word be transparent and we're talking in spaces of leadership, you have to be mindful not to overshare, because sometimes we overshare personal situations, and that goes into the Rolodex of the leader and of the manager, and not necessarily used against you, but you're building a case on capacity and capability. And again, cultural differences may not understand the cultural differences or the footprint that you sit with. So in thinking about the cultural things that are important to you and what you sit with, you have to be transparent, but be transparent to a certain degree, that um it doesn't show your cover story unhealthy. It doesn't show your cover story in an unhealthy manner, and that your cover letter, your branding of yourself, all of those things show up well for you, and that in your transparency you're not showing deficiency, but you're showing your willingness to continue to level up and learn. So I hope that that answered your question. And so I am going to put up my message of thanking you all for joining me today on this Tuesday's Leadership Nuggets with Mary May, and our cup of coffee. I had my cup of coffee um, with talking about a cover story and so forth like that. So if there are any ways in which I can be of support to you, or that you are interested and just really engaging in the GPS level of the blueprint to developing your goals and developing a strategy on how it is that you can level up and go from being overlooked to well paid and promoted, then definitely feel through to schedule your breakthrough chat. On my calendar, there's some availability for this week and definitely next, where we can just kind of peel back the layers and you can identify where is it that you need to pull that curtain back. Where is it that you need to move and get out of your own way? What are the roadblocks and the detours that continually show up in your life? Um, and how is it that you could break through that, where again there's no glass ceiling and there's no boxes in leadership. The only time that there are glass ceilings and that there are boxes is when you accept and own and take on the limiting beliefs that you have about what somebody else has told you, because every opportunity is for you as long as you are willing to take that next step and open the door and apply. So with that, I'm going to thank you for joining us for Tuesday Morning Nuggets. We're here each and every Tuesday morning from 7:30 to 8. We went a little bit over today, but that's because we had great dialogue and great feedback. I look forward to serving you next week and throughout the week with valuable content. If there's any way that I can help you as an individual or your organization with leadership tools and strategies, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I wish you all a successful Tuesday and a successful rest of your week. In the meanwhile, you take care and you stay safe out there in those streets. All right, stay well.